All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, July 27th, 2022 to order. Just a reminder to anybody that's here, please sign in at the back of the room if you haven't done so already. Before we get going, I'm going to go around the room for our call to order or roll call, starting on my right with Ms. Jones.
Jones, alternate.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Gary Anderson.
Ben Bartlett, Board of Selectmen representative.
Ian McKinnon.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney. Charlene Anderson.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
So we have a light agenda tonight compared to some of the recent weeks. We only have one item on the agenda tonight. Well, for the public hearings, it's a continuation of case number 22-007-SIT. It's an application from David Beatty of BSC Group, representing Concrete Products of Londonderry, requesting approval to build a precast concrete manufacturing facility. Property is located at 160 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, identified as tax map 3, lot 2-2. And once again, I'm in a butter to this case, so I am going to recuse and turn the chair duties over to Mr. McKinnon.
Evening. So to start, for both, we can see Sandra Jones for Sherry Sandler this evening, and Buzz Davy can also be seated for this application. So, Ms. Jones, you'll be in Sherry's position for the evening. All right. So I think most everybody on the board has probably seen some updated documents have gone through. The applicant has provided a number of additional supporting data documents, which I know we've received some fire department feedback on. And I believe an updated plan set, which I think was noted that, what was it, the 22nd or something like that, right around the 22nd, I think we received updated plans.
I think 22nd. However, we did not revise the date.
Yeah.
So just keep an eye out.
I assume there'll just be a final date
Sure.
on the plans anyway, so. So I guess, I don't know if there's anything you guys want to highlight in terms of what you've updated or
Yes.
provided to the board, and any additional information you want to provide to us.
Again, I'm David Beatty with BSC Group, with George Sarman from Shea Concrete. I just wanted to go through a few of the things that we did update in that plan set, if you will.
Yeah, please.
Right on the front cover, you'll note some general notes that we added, that the alteration of terrain permit, according to peer review by CMA, will not be required. Area of disturbance is only 77,438 square feet. Number two was that the peer review was done by CMA engineers. There's a New Hampshire DOT access permit in process through James Hewitt, District 6. Number four is 2 ZBA granted waivers are listed here, one for building height and one for a concrete apron, both of which have been approved. And number 5 was just that the increase in truck traffic is we believe, very negligible. The number of trips potentially could increase over time between 8 and 10 trips a day, from 2 to 4 right now. So, you know, a total of between 10 and 14 is what they see as the upside potential of trips emanating from this site. And obviously, with the volume of Old Turnpike Road, Route 4, this is a very minor percentage increase. Heading over to page 3, C100, we have delineated the area that Mr. Vail suggested between the industrial, commercial, and residential zone, the area between that line and the edge of gravel. We have proposed to remove or replace, I should say, or relocate as many of the precast units as we can from that area.
Can we stay on that for a second? I think Mr. Veal's comment was actually just to more so the wetland setback, so that's a smaller, I guess obviously it's a little hard to see, so I think the original comment was more so to, that 100-foot setback kind of slivers through there, so it'd actually be about a third of the area
Right.
you have hatched. I think that was the area of concern.
Oh, I thought he mentioned the
Yeah, I thought it was residential.
residential line.
Oh, okay,
Cleaner,
okay.
We do have a significant number of storage units back there.
Yeah.
And,
All right, maybe I'll bring that to the board and we'll discuss that. I think maybe I interpret it differently as the meeting had gone on.
that would be
Okay.
much more advantageous for us.
Okay, I'll bring that back to the board for discussion then.
Same sheet, there is a stabilized construction entrance shown, there's a detail for it in the detail section. Sheet C101, there is a level spreader detail in the detail section as well. And also in this area, we have rehatched the slope from the proposed water quality swales at the bottom of that slope, or that bank, if you will, embankment. And it reads that the slope will be stabilized after regrading with loam and seed. We don't think that we can go any steeper to berm that up with the current grade of that slope at this point. It's a 3-to-1 right now, and you know, perhaps we can go with some increased vegetation with some increased height to it, you know, in addition to the privacy fence. So that's our suggestion at this point with respect to that issue. Again, the other items that I would note are in the details section, and we have included the ones that seem to be missing. George, I don't know if you want to.
I'm good.
All right. I'll bring it back to the board, then just to go through a couple of the final things. I guess I'd be curious to bring it back to the board, so I guess maybe at the last meeting I interpreted that the comment was to maybe remove some of the gravel area and the storage, that fell within the 100-foot wetland setback, and I think I might have made a comment that it'd be nice to see that area within the 100-foot setback kind of pulled back, you know, essentially just try and revegetate that. Obviously, that constitutes a smaller area than what they have hatched here on sheet C100. I don't know what anybody else's thought is on that. I think the 100-foot setback is a good starting point, but did anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess some of my concern is it's zoned residential in that area, yet it's being used for commercial.
Right.
So I think that it would either need to get a variance on that, or, you know, or what I would like to see is it just be either fenced off or reseeded in that area. Because there's gonna be additional storage now with the new plant, so some of that is down there can be relocated.
Yeah, there'll be some.
I mean, that's a significant area to reseed and to remove all those structures from. I don't even know where they would put them at this particular point, but certainly we would consider.
Yeah, I guess my thought on that is that it's essentially kind of a grandfathered use, and honestly, this plant's been in operation before the ordinance was kind of written for that.
I would disagree that it's grandfathered use.
Well, the storage has been.
I would say it was being used without any, all the big grandfather with you anytime. I wouldn't say that was grandfathered. The grandfathering is not using something that you shouldn't have been using, and just because you were using it doesn't mean that.
The plant's been in
grandfathered.
operation since the 70s, and I think our ordinance was even first issued in the 80s, so if the area had, I mean, I don't know the date of when it was used, but there's a potential that it was grandfathered use based on the dates of the ordinance. I mean, if we're gonna move forward, the reason I think it needs discussion too is if we're gonna move forward with, you know, as they have it hatched, removing the storage units from that area, either it would need to be revegetated, so it's not storage area, or else,
Correct.
like you said, a fence or some way of delineating that space as not being able to be used.
Correct.
I guess.
Go to third.
If the plant has been existing since the seventies, wouldn't that have automatically made it, the plant itself?
The
The use of that property grandfathered?
It's
But
an
it's a-
encroachment onto residential properties, basically the residential zone, and we don't know when it did or did not start, right?
And that's what it is, we don't have a map of it, whenever it was open, we don't have a map of what that was. There'd be a lot more data, I think, needed to make a 100% determination.
I mean, there's a significant buffer between what we're proposing, the proposed use, the existing use, and any residential units in the rear. A huge wetland in the back. Proposed facility is not to even to be proposed to be encroaching within that wetland by about 160 feet from the edge of the apron. You know, we didn't go to try and take everything we could here, so I would request and, you know, appreciate maybe a little latitude over there. We would be more than happy to pull those units out of the buffer zone, out of the 100-foot setback for sure. But to not be able to use that at this point in time, there's no visibility issues with it whatsoever back there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, maybe grandfather is the word is probably more so looking for is that it's essentially a existing non-conformance by and because we don't know the dates on it, obviously.
Right, so.
But pulling that back to the 100-foot is making it more in conformance, which is what we usually seek to do, is increase the conformance of the site if there is a non-conformance. So I think that was my initial intent, was to hold that 100-foot wetland, because we were able to keep to that, right? All disturbance stays out of it with the proposed application. And obviously this area has kind of been brought to our attention and been discussed, that, I guess that's my feeling. Ultimately, if there's any votes taken at some point, we'll have to make sure this is kind of settled, but.
So I just wanted clarification on that. Is really the concern is, that we're talking about, is the residential being close to the residential line.
Right, or that 1,000, the zone is just a strict 1,000 feet back.
But restoring that 100-foot buffer for the
Yeah.
wetlands
And the setback to the wetlands.
is important.
Yeah, so there's kind of that's right, there's really, it's two things.
Yeah.
It's,
Is there a no use within the 100-foot setback from the wetlands in Nottingham?
most likely, like if this is gonna be a large gravel storage area, I know you'd probably have some pushback from people to propose something like this now. in the
Sure,
100-foot
but I'm-
Buffer, but, no, there's certain things allowed within the 100, but this is a 100-foot because it's a critical wetland, right?
So again, what are you proposing that you do with that area?
So the area that I'm proposing, this is the residential
Right,
industrial line here.
right,
This is the magenta here is delineating the area between that residential commercial line and the edge of the gravel, the edge of the existing gravel as we know it today. So this being the cyan line being the 100-foot buffer, we're proposing certainly to move everything from that little sector right there. Let's pull everything back here, we're talking lots and lots of units. I don't know where we put them.
and would you reseed that area or replant that area, that wetland area? that
I think
wetland
I'd look
setback?
for, I think that was my thought originally,
Yeah.
too. It's a smaller area, I think it's relatively flat, so it should be easier to keep. If we're gonna focus on the 100-foot wetland buffer, I think I'd wanna see it seeded, when they go along and seed other areas.
I guess I wonder if, do we need a waiver then for that? For that, if we were to say, okay, the setback, plant it, whatever, but that residential zone, do we need a waiver, or do they need a variance to use that for commercial use?
I think that falls into the non-conformance. It's essentially it's a existing use up where it is in the commercial, but it's been in use for decades.
But that doesn't mean that, that's,
Right, but at the time of the application, I guess unless there was ever enforcement action taken against, I wouldn't have a good, my opinion is it's a non-conforming use, and our ordinances clearly make sure we can't make something more non-conforming. Similar to these homes subdivisions that we do, that, the goal is to improve, kind of, like, we just did one where we gave frontage, even though it
yeah,
didn't
but I
meet-
guess my concern is if we just say, okay, just do the 100-foot, leave that, and we can't ignore that. We need to address that, because then we're approving a plan that has a non-conforming use on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, another example, I don't know, Blair, do you have any? I'm trying to think of a good example, but, my opinion is that it would fall into just a non-conforming, and then this would be improving the conformance, because that zone line does strike through the property, but I don't know.
I mean, to me, it would appear to be an existing non-conforming.
Yeah,
How you have a tendency to handle that, you know, I just haven't been here long enough to see that, but, I mean, to prove an encroachment, that would take a substantial lift, and I don't know that we even have the information to be able to do that. I mean, I think you're not,
I don't think we're in risk of violating any sort of zoning.
creating any precedent or violating zoning, because you are making it less non-conforming by pulling it back. If it predates zoning,
The overall, the initial use does, based on being in the 70s, but we don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
What
this
was
plant,
pushed
this
out, what
plant,
was
this
pushed
plant
over?
also laid vacant for a while, so it wasn't being used for a while, so I would assume that it didn't start getting, that stuff didn't start getting down there until Shea Concrete started using it again a few years ago.
Yeah, I think to make a, I'm not sure how you make a formal determination without dates of everything, and we need a lot of data to make a conformance determination. I think either way, we can, by pulling that gravel out, it is making it more non-conforming as we look at it today. Being a business that's been operating now for quite some time. That's kind of where I stand, it's making it more non-conforming in that sense.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused too, because I thought it was during the site visit and even in some of these meetings that you had indicated that when stuff is produced, it usually gets shipped out within a couple of days. That inventory is not sitting there for long periods of time, so that there's this constant kind of manufacture, set it out there for final cure, and then it goes off into the trucks and that.
Some things sit there for 24 hours, some things can sit there for 3 years before it goes out. Unfortunately, the type of business that it is sometimes a customer calls and says, we need 40 of those, and sometimes we only have 4 of them, you know? So it all depends on what it is. So their inventory is usually very high for that product. So in terms of stuff staying, on the average, stuff stays there pretty long before it gets shipped out. Only some stuff goes out right away. Some stuff takes a long time for it to go out.
Yeah, I assume that lower area is more so maybe some of your longer term items that you.
Perhaps,
Makes sense, okay.
I mean, point is made, though, that, you know, it's possible that over time it's been encroached upon, so whatever gets settled here, there needs to be some sort of understanding about how that is looked at down the road, you know, to avoid encroachment. I mean, if you're building a bigger factory, you're gonna be looking to be doing more business. It's just such a convenient more products being stored on the site. And we don't wanna be back in the same situation 5 years from now where just creep.
Sure.
And we end back, you know, it ends back up where that line is right now. So,
I think that's one of those issues where if you have something that was around for a while, we don't have any good site plan records. 'Cause that's all that really the board ever has to go off. Is it what we approved? And
I know a lot of other towns, they have us put up like a no-cut zone every 50 feet.
Sure.
Plaque, so we could put that up, so once we build this back up, we could put that in, so we'd make sure that it never encroached back in there again.
I'm always in favor of that.
In
Yeah.
favor of that?
I'd be anywhere, yeah, anything we were close to a wetland buffer of any
Yep.
kind. That's a great thing to do. Again, if for some reason it turns hands, or a manager shifts out, they know they can't. Yeah.
Correct.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? I guess I just wanna, we can discuss it at the very end in terms of how we word any sort of conditions related to that. I don't know if any thoughts. Okay. The last plan-related thing, it's nothing major, I just wanted to touch base, so I'm on sheet C101. There's still this area that's, I guess it'd be a crosshatch. It's called as proposed gravel storage area, and then when I look at the contours, it looks like there is maybe some space along the, you know, adjacent to the apron areas where you guys might have space to store some material, but there is some sections there, you know, where it's 3-to-1 slope. I'd want to make sure that those, I think that anything, you know, some of those areas you might be able to put stuff, but make sure the 3-to-1 slopes, this would be, I guess, what's that, the southeast side of those slopes. It'd be good to make sure all the 3-to-1 slopes are vegetated. You can't put material, you can't store stuff on the 3-to-1 slope.
You on C101?
Yeah,
So,
so it's this, it's.
mind if I?
Yeah, if you wanna come up here and then, so there's this kinda crosshatch, that's an L shape that goes around. All of this is called as proposed gravel and storage area.
This is where we revised this side of it.
Yeah.
This is where we have that significant slope. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, there's
I
some
see
areas, and I'm looking at that, we got the level spreader, I mean, that 3-to-1 slope, you can't store material on. Just from a stability perspective, it would be, if it's a 3-to-1 slope that you're not using, it's just gonna be eroded over time.
Yeah, I don't.
I guess I would put a thing and say, you know, any 3-to-1 slopes should be grass. So yes, I think there will be some gravel there between the concrete and then I guess wherever that slope drops down.
Right.
Because you can't use 3-to-1, you can't put anything on it anyway. So for long-term stabilization, it should be grassed.
Right. Okay.
Are you referring to the left side of the?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the plan on the left side, just to be able to tell the area I'm talking about, on C102, on the left side of the new building, they have the concrete apron, and then you see those contour lines that are really tight together. Those are 3-to-1 slopes. There's some areas uphill of it that you might be able to put some material in. But those 3-to-1 slopes should be vegetated, just for long-term stabilization.
Sure.
That's really it. I know I saw some emails related to the DOT. It sounds like you guys have some fun to deal with DOT.
Yes.
If anything, it sounds like they want you guys to shrink some stuff down. So generally our policy is there's a driveway there. it's on you to figure out with DOT. Generally, the rule of thumb is as long as you're not taking the driveway from over here and moving it way down here, we don't have any control over the right of way, so I think
Yeah.
you guys have more so a battle ahead of you just to sort that out with those guys, so.
I didn't quite understand what he meant by the shared driveway.
I didn't either, I didn't wanna look
So I
into
think
it.
yeah,
That's for
maybe-
you to figure
He
out.
must be looking at some old property maps or something, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but, yeah, I just got that today, and certainly we're gonna dive into that, first thing.
Yep, so we generally just condition it and say final DOT permit is, you know, prior to, well, I think you'd really need it prior to construction anyway, cause they're not gonna want you using that driveway anyway. I think that's kinda it for some of the newer stuff. I saw you responded. Anybody have any questions on the, did provide a response letter today? Pretty much, you just went over everything. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to discuss? Sue, whenever you wanna get into it, I did wanna touch
Yeah.
base about the Concom. I know there were some discussions there and maybe,
Did you gentlemen receive the letter that was dated July 21st? Did they get one? July 21st?
I believe we did.
2022? We held a special meeting on July 20th to address some issues that we had, we meaning the Conservation Commission. And Mr. Demerit, our chair, is sitting in the audience, so he can and help me through this if he wishes to. There were quite a bit of information leading in, because this particular location has very high value for habitat, wildlife habitat, and where the new building will be constructed is part of the supporting landscape for that area. There are several bullets I'm just going to run through quickly from the commission, and I also want to state that I cannot speak for the commission as an individual, and our next meeting will be August 8th, in which we can recraft our position at that point. Okay. So the first bullet, this application to be reviewed by the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, LRAC, and they can just give a pass if they so choose, because of the proximity to the Little River Wetland Complex. The Little River is a state-protected river per RSA 483. In addition to items noted below, a recommendation for the location of snow storage, which you have just added to your plans, and salt use that is used for minimizing dust in the yard should also be addressed by the LRAC. The disturbance has been increased to about 77,000 feet, so again, it doesn't bump that threshold of 100,000 for an alteration of terrain. With these proposed additional activities, additional site disturbance will include proposed leach field, berm removal, additional parking and ADA parking access, new gravel area for storage of materials and level spreaders for runoff. Additional planned disturbance will be regrading of some areas with new subbase and associated paving, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm assuming those all fall under the 77,000. So the first bullet on the back says, with these proposed additional activities, please provide the total project disturbance. That will be 77,000. If the threshold is exceeded, then AOT and required wildlife habitat assessment from New Hampshire Heritage Bureau are required. So from my personal knowledge, when Shea Concrete goes to renew their wetland permit for activities, the New Hampshire Heritage Bureau needs to be contacted again, because their reviews are only good for a year. So that will trigger that. And that might satisfy commission members with their concerns on that point. The commission requests, another bullet, the commission requests that timber cut be delayed until October 1st, so not to disturb wildlife breeding, nesting, and migration seasons. The commission endorses the construction of earthen berms and vegetation to mitigate noise. All water runoff from impervious and compacted surfaces will be directed and captured and treated before entering groundwater reservoir, and you had addressed that. Proposed lighting should be minimal, down-facing and on timers, only to provide for the safety of employees. This would be an improvement from the present lighting on the site. Commission requested that at the commission meeting of July 11th, that the applicant provide us with the MSDS sheet for the hardening additive to be added to the cement mix. And that sheet was not forthcoming until just recently. So I have reviewed the MSDS sheet has my husband, who is a scientist retired from UNH. And the two active ingredients in the master Glenium 7620 are acetic acid, which is vinegar, double the strength of household vinegar, which is 4% up to 7%. And then acrylic acid, which is a polymer, no, it's not a polymer, it's a plasticine, which helps accelerate the hardening of the cement. And that, it's not a forever chemical, and it degrades into lactic acid, which is pretty harmless. So all in all, you would have to really chug this stuff to kill yourself. So I'll bring that to our meeting on the 8th and just explain the chemical to them.
That's all kept inside the building as well. I know there was a question if that was outside the building or inside the building. That's all kept inside the building.
Is it a building? Is it a solid or is it a liquid? It's a liquid, okay. So as I said, we're going to be meeting again on the 8th, and we'll
So
Make
just so
another
I'm
decision.
clear, the reasoning we're still needing to meet, is it because the commission had just expressed the desire to review the admixtures? So is that the outstanding item?
Well, we were concerned that if there was any runoff into the wetland, what would happen to the wetland? And would that poison the wetland, you know, forever with amphibians and all sorts of sensitive organisms? But with this particular chemical and having the chance to review it and knowing what its impact or non-impact will be, has made me feel better.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here from a statutory perspective of what we would even, the admixtures that they use are essentially governed by state or federal law.
Yeah. And I know they're widely used in the industry.
Right, yeah, it's pretty standard across the board. I'm just trying to think if that's what's holding up, I guess, a final, just to say, the discussion. I'm just not even sure if it's something that's really in the purview of our review. Like, I can't, like, because it's a business practice and probably the state, actually, DES probably looks at it from a business perspective. I'm just not even sure if we have the purview to, if it was a different chemical, I'm not even sure if we have the purview to tell them what chemical they can use or not, because it's not in our expertise to do so. It sounds like that might be the kind of the one thing holding up.
No, it's not. I think at this point, it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
But as I said, I can't speak for commission members.
Sure.
They have to say, okay, we're good, you know.
No, I get that. I'm just,
There was one
I
thing,
worry if somebody says it's not good, it's a little outside of, you know what I mean? Like, could it drag on?
Well, we can always vote and have a majority. The Democratic group.
Yeah, I just don't even know if it's something that is kind of outside the review parameters, I'd say. Go ahead.
yeah, there's one thing I neglected to throw in here, and that is that the existing facility has a pretty extensive SWIP plan already in place. We didn't send it over,
It's a boring document.
but I mean, you know, not only is the new proposed facility, does it have a pretty extensive stormwater mitigation design, the old one does as well. And I think they spent a considerable amount of time, and a considerable amount of money, checking all those boxes. So whether this ingredient, this admixture is in the new facility or the old, both sides of the sites are very, very well protected from any, deleterious effects to this body of water. With quite an over design, or a little bit of an extra design. Just wanted to throw that in.
So from layman's terms, really that these products aren't released beyond the interior of the buildings.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, it's released in the interior of the building to help set up the concrete pour. Once it's poured and set up somewhat, it gets moved outside to additionally cure. So maybe in a very severe rainstorm, some of the top of it, some of it could fly off the top as an ash or something, but it's still going to be conveyed.
I think it sets up within 2 hours, to be honest with you.
Probably used up, right? Yeah.
It's a plasticizer, it makes it set up quick, so it hardens fairly quickly. And the biggest concern is when it's still in its liquid form, and it stays in a big plastic container, and that container's inside the building. And like other facilities, people are concerned that if somebody hit it, backed in with a truck, and it was outside the building, that could get on the ground, you know what I'm saying? But it's not, it's in the building, it's under a roof, and it's protected. I think I sent a picture for that as well, it was in. So it's not like that's gonna get, broken outside, and not anybody's gonna notice it, you know what I mean? And we have like a containment area where we put these in, and we build like a concrete berm there, so in case it ever did spill, it's contained inside the building.
I'm personally satisfied with the information we received.
I think the
We
one.
don't even have to report that as like a hazmat product in the building.
Right, I don't even.
There's
think it
nothing
qualifies.
like that we have to,
There was, I guess, looking through the bullet points here from the Conservation Commission, one of them was the LRAC. I know we received feedback from the LRAC, the Advisory Committee, and I think from what I gathered is it was a lot of overlapping thoughts that we've already got out here in previous meetings or addressed otherwise, so. One of the recommendations, bullet point 2, did talk about delaying until October 1st, so that's a request to delay. It could be a condition, I don't know what your timing is anyway, if it really matters, if you wait until
August, so
October.
it's
Yeah,
I think, end of September, beginning of October.
okay, so I mean, I don't know if it's, the
Yeah.
reason I say that is because it's a request from the commission, so it has the potential of becoming like a recommended condition from this board. If you guys are amenable to an October 1st, holding any cutting until October 1st, like you said, we're hard to mobilize for some stuff anyway in the next 2 months. So.
I had a question too, because if we were to approve this based on the conditional permits from DOT, right? I mean, that would be a condition of approval. They could then start, it's their risk to start the work, right? Or do they have to wait till they get that approval to start the work?
So that,
If we conditionally approve it based on DOT, they can start cutting trees and stuff like that, right?
you do not need generally a DOT, it falls on the town really. It's, so the DOT, you can start work at your own risk,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Okay, that's what.
Tricky part here is there isn't a driveway. The DOT's obviously asked for some changes, some reduction in driveway. We care about the access to the site, right? So either way, there's gonna be access to the site. Yeah, it's more so, if it was a new build,
Signage is.
we might worry about letting them, cut a corridor through the trees, but then DOT says, oh, wait, you need to go over here. Just let them cut a corridor, so. Yeah, this is kind of a unique situation where it's an existing site.
Or even whether DOT was going to allow a driveway permit. But
Now it's DOT just trying to massage things, I think, I gathered from the comments. Okay, so I think there's a consensus there that maybe we can just, just to get it on the record, that maybe we'll have a hold until October 1st of this year. Does anybody else have anything else before we kind of go over just some of the, I guess, more of the final bullet points? Comments, concerns. The public hearing, you know, it's still technically open, so just because this is the last meeting, we do have 2 people, I guess I'll bring it back to the board for any final discussions. I'll open the public hearing to any final comments, if anybody wishes to say anything. Any attendance, we'll just go for whoever wants to come up and say anything, no particular order. But please, if you do, state your name for the record, name and address. If you so desire.
Edward Veal, 17 Garland Road. I'll just step back up, speaking only as an abutter in the moment. I appreciate the applicant's additional time and what the changes that they made. When I made the comment about that storage section in the back being the residential industrial zone, not knowing what's there now or what's in it, it was more to the applicant of saying, you know, good time to potentially clean that up if it works during this case. You know, my house is pretty far from this. That is an extensive wetland. I think it's probably a likely black gum tree stand just behind that area. So any improvement, I welcome any improvement there. If that be just adjusting the setback to the wetlands buffer and reseeding that, I think that's a great compromise. I apologize to the gentleman for mispronouncing his last name. It's Beatty instead of Beatty, so. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, last call. So I think with that, I think we can close the public hearing on this one. So you guys can come back up if you'd like, and so we'll close that public hearing. So I think the 2 things, I've got a number of things that I've kind of jotted down just as conditions of approval. Some of them are pretty standard. I know we've talked about a lot and stuff's gone back and forth, so it's probably pertinent to kind of review where we're at right now. So I'll just run through this. So currently, you know, if the board so chooses to take any action on it, we're looking at our standard conditions of approval, plan copies, making sure all fees are paid. That's generally, you know, we kind of check off items. That's on page 3 of this staff memo from SRPC. And then as we discussed, there's, I think at a minimum, there's this desire to revegetate the area, the gravel area that falls within the 100-foot setback. And the applicants also proposed that maybe they could, you know, stake and place some placards along that setback for long-term protection of that area. NHDOT driveway permit will be needed as it was, and we've kind of, that's on them to sort that out with DOT. There's already existing access to the site, and they just need to work on some modifications. The final cistern design, we haven't talked about tonight, but we've already discussed it with the chief. The final cistern design needs to be coordinated with the fire chief, and he'll issue a final approval just to have on file. But that, you know, he agreed. He doesn't think that needs to be part of. That's all underground at this point. And working out the details. And then there was a discussion about the 3-to-1 slopes, particularly on the southeast side of the site, be loamed and seeded, just due to their slope. And then there was a request for no cutting until October 1st.
What about the outstanding DES permit?
Wetland permit?
The wetland permit. That needs to be renewed.
Well, the wetland, that permit is not needed to construct any of what's proposed as part of the application.
But they were gonna pull and fill that area. Some of the gravel that they were pulling from there was gonna go into that.
Oh, I don't know if I heard that. Is that,
And when we did the site walk, I thought that was discussed.
Yep.
is that the desire?
And we looked up the permit's still good till, I think, the end of September of this year.
Okay, so to that point, in that case, there would need to be so the town's approval for that work will have expired. Cause there would have been a site plan approval before that. The work wasn't, the final conditions, I guess, weren't ever really completed, so this town site plan approval on that has been expired. So there would need to be a new, I guess we would just
Back for
condition
that.
it and say, no work, I'm not even sure.
No work in that area until we come back on that
Yeah,
area.
there would be no work in previously approved wetland impact area is permitted under this approval until a new site plan approval for that work is pulled. I'll read through these real quick one last time before, if there's another, make sure we get this right. I'll say it twice for Kevin, so when he retypes. Thank you for bringing that up. And then I think the last thing, I just wanna close the loop on it, because, if there's a decision to make a motion tonight, we need to close the loop, because I know Sue made a comment that, in the commission's opinion, that there was this outstanding item of they hadn't had the chance to discuss the data sheets. I don't think, you made the comments about the 100-foot threshold, the fact that they've exhibited that they're underneath it, that kind of satisfies that bullet point. So I guess my feeling on it is that I understand kind of getting the data information, but I don't think anything's going to change or should change from any sort of recommendation perspective. Partially because the cement mix additive is somewhat outside of, I'd say, our review expertise. So whether that you could throw any random name chemical at me, I'm not even really sure if I'd be able to have the ability to say, yes, you can use that, yes, you can. But and also, if there is a motion made tonight, obviously the commission's provided some great recommendations, which I think we've been able to incorporate. If there's approval granted tonight, there wouldn't be a need for the commission to really.
But I think just to clean up, that scenario where the commission was brought in and asked opinions about this, that, and the other thing, just kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm just.
If you, whatever you wish to do.
Now I'm thinking, is there a way to condition anything such that the commission can just provide
Final review,
their final letter?
their final letter, no matter what it says.
Part of me doesn't like doing conditions on reviews like that, but I think there's kind of a consensus that it's more of a formality, I guess.
It's a
discussion.
formality, and it's a week and a half away.
I'm fine with condition, I mean, part of it too, I'm thinking ahead, I know I think we've come to a point where we're ready to maybe have somebody make a motion here.
Right, this is what we said we were gonna do at the last meeting. That's one of the things we talked
With the
about.
intent, we don't have to
that were
commit
gonna
to
work
it,
on,
but,
they were
yeah.
gonna work on getting things, the final things cleaned up, and that they're, one of the questions I remember was, will we come back and there'll be yet another meeting? And it almost feels like that's where direction we're heading in, and I don't.
Yeah, my opinion is there, I just wanna make sure we have another commission who, obviously they kind of act independently, and it's a requirement that they provide recommendation, which they have, so, but the loop hasn't been quite closed, so I'm fine with conditioning, saying, the commission just puts on file a final. It's essentially this memo, just saying, we're moving this time, there's that final sentence, at this time, we can't, really, I don't think anything's gonna change, I think you guys might just change some of the wording on the data sheets, like you said, so. I'm fine with conditioning an approval tonight if we choose that.
Well, a question on the Conservation Commission, isn't it really just the final feedback on the MSDS sheet review? Because you hadn't discussed that.
I think there were some other issues as well. All of those bullets need to be considered.
These bullets?
The one in the letter, there were like 5 or 6 bullets.
Right, so bullet one's kind of been handled, they've shown that they're underneath the 100,000 square foot threshold. We're gonna do the October 1st no cut, or no cut until October 1st. The earth and berms and vegetation, we kind of talked about, last time the applicant has stated to us this time that, they looked at that, and I can see what they said, it would increase the slopes from 3 to 1 to probably a 2 to 1 to get a little berm. but what they are showing is a fence with new vegetation. There was an addition this time to beef up that buffer. All water runoff treated and captured, and I think CMA pretty much, all the new stuff is being captured and treated, so bullet number 4 has been addressed. And number 5, I think it's always important to state that, regarding the lighting, there is a lighting ordinance, so all new lighting has to meet that anyway. And then it's just that final bullet that kind of seems to be just, there's some curiosity around the MSDS sheets. I think there's some question around,
Would it be easier if we put something in there that said that, we meet all state requirements for that? Yeah, because that
I mean,
might be
maybe on
easier
that.
than
Yeah,
someone's opinion, because, if something the state requires us to have a permit to do that, we'll make sure we supply all state permits for that.
it seems like a good place for that might be the,
And if there's no state permit, we'll just send a letter in saying there's no state permit. We review with the state, and they say that we don't have a permit. We don't need a permit.
George, what agency is that in the state that you get a permit from?
I know, that's what I'm guessing, I'm not really sure, that's what I'm saying, we'll check with the state, tell them that we're using this chemical, and that, whatever permits we have to have, we'll obtain those permits,
probably,
to have that,
I assume it's NHDS.
Well, it's probably DES for disposal of and OSHA for handling.
Yeah, I did check into OSHA, we don't have to have any permits with OSHA.
Yeah, it's
If
just.
something definitive would be helpful.
So just maybe a note 6 on that cover sheet, just
Yep.
something to that effect that you've at least looked into it.
That'd be good.
I still think I'm comfortable just adding a little final condition here saying, the commission just submit something for the file, project
Yes,
file.
yeah,
So,
comfortable with that. May I ask what your disposition is for part of the facility being located as a default in the residential zone? We're just not going to address that.
It's this, I guess without a lot more information on dates and times, it falls under a pre-existing non-conforming use. By us pulling the gravel out of the 100-foot setback, which is kind of some overlapping things going on right there, we are making the site more conforming by pulling that use out of, because that wetland area does fall in the residential as well, so kind of pulling that.
But that, should that be addressed in our final summation?
That we believe we're making a lot more non-conforming, or that we
Yes,
didn't
that
want
we've addressed the situation and we don't see any problem because it's being less, non-conforming. Just for the record, I
I
would
can
think.
make a statement as part of that number condition regarding the 100-foot wetland setback and pulling it out, saying that we believe by doing so, we're making the site more non-conforming within
Less.
residential.
Yes,
Less
I think that would be
non-conforming,
good.
so-
That would be good. And that way it gets addressed for the record.
My opinion is I think we've addressed, or gotten through everything, unless anybody has any final, I guess, Blair, I didn't see anything new on your memo, it was kind of just talking about the different things they provided with the reviews.
I did, it largely outlines, summarizes
Yep.
in our memo, which was like a joint addressing of SRPC, not me,
Yep.
SRP's review of the DRI, as well as CMA's review of their stormwater management plan. I would add, though, which was noted in my report, is that they noted that their septic system design is still in progress. I would probably add that in, or consider adding that in as another condition of
The septic system
approval. Yeah.
approval was not, still,
Yeah, they have it in motion. It's like the driveway permit. It's in motion, but it's not in our hands, so it should be added as a condition.
Do you want to say, I almost want to say something like that, it's required prior to CO or something like that, condition of occupancy.
Because,
I think
because
that's fine, that's gonna take them time to.
one of the things that was noted is that the 4K area, or the
That was the,
their response. Was the 4K area noted on the plan? That was,
So the 4K is on there, but I think maybe there was,
each field is not shown 4,000 contiguous square feet per 8.4.3.
Yeah, that was, leach field was initially placed as sort of a placeholder.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have any dimensional analysis to it. So it's an approximate location of where the leach field will go based upon the fact that we did some test pitting over there. Certainly, it's not.
We're getting final plans with everything buttoned up on, as a submittal back to us, correct?
Absolutely.
So if you could include that,
I was gonna say, that might be, so I'm looking at, just looking to see where all the test pits are. It looks like you have 2 test pits labeled as TP2 that are kind of on the north side, which is also where I think I'm looking at C102.2. That's just that grading plan, just to see in reference to where the leach field was. They both look like they would fall within the 4K area required for it, but just make sure that the box, you can show the approximate leach field location.
Sure.
But they're essentially just show that 4K area encompassing both of those test pits. I guess it'd be TP2, it might just be misnumbered slightly, but
yeah, you're supposed to show a 4K area with 2 test pits inside it to demonstrate that you've got percolation to meet standards and soils to meet standards. So just when you put that 4K area on the map, it has to encompass 2 of your test pits.
Got it.
Unless you do other 2 test pits, we're not asking you to go run out and do it again.
Right.
It is supposed to encompass it.
Okay.
So that'll need to be something. So I think that's more the issue than the actual approval.
right, because that works its way through the system anyway. So
Yes.
we don't have any.
But yeah, it was more that than it was,
Okay.
we need to know you can get it, right? It's a standard we have to hold everybody.
Sure, sure.
Certain you can, but it needs to be.
And that goes through the town. It goes through Dale here in the town anyway. Too,
Yep.
So we'll certainly see if for some reason you don't have it.
Yeah,
Okay.
That one, I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I did get feedback from the chief regarding the MSDS sheet.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Yeah.
First of all, he was happy that we actually you called him, I spoke to him. He was happy that this process is starting, moving forward with other leases. I'm just gonna read it real quickly, just his email, just a couple things for you guys know. He basically had no comment, or no concern regarding the information from the data sheet. He did, mention, he said he hasn't got any contact to date regarding the minor cistern change or the minor changes regarding the applicant needs to address regarding requirements for the cisterns. Hasn't heard from you guys yet regarding that. He did give me a cell phone number for you guys to give him a call at. I forwarded you the email that I just got, so it's not great. I just wanted to reach out to him, but I just wanted to mention that, just so his feedback.
In response to that, we've had the design done by a company called SFC out of Windsor, New Hampshire, and they're working on it, and it's getting bogged down in size generators that we need for the pump systems and all that stuff. So once we get the generator, the system's pretty much ready to go, so I guess I was hoping to have that by tonight, but I'm hoping by next week we'll have that, so I'll give that out to the fire chief.
I was just giving a call.
Yeah. He likes to know when things are coming. Okay.
So one question I have too is, just when we make conditional approvals in the past, we've discussed that we should like set a date that, if some of the stuff isn't done by such and such time, so I guess, do we want to assign a date that the
Well, it's a 1 year, right?
Per our regs, I think they have
It's
a
a
year.
year.
Right.
Are you saying to build, like, beforehand to try and get some of these little, any sort of little things, like, no? you
Kind of
wanna
like
see that?
as just like a status check-in and stuff, I think, 'cause they're not gonna be able to submit a final plan to us, right, until the septic is addressed, is finalized, right, so that's one thing.
I think what we're looking for, technically, I misworded it in the beginning, but I think what we're looking for is a place on the plan that can show 4K area
Right.
with two passing test pits. And that's what we have.
Because that's what we would approve as the plan.
That's the standard that we would hold everybody else to.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a final one.
So I think to your point, well, now I'm trying to think, almost what you're saying is the board needs to determine possibly that they met the conditions. Or-
Yeah, I mean, unless that would be up to the, code enforcement
Yeah,
officer,
yeah.
building inspector.
Yeah, I'm just worried, I don't even know if we can discuss the case after we approve it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
okay.
discuss the specifics. No, I see what you're saying though.
Looking for clarification.
And I think some of the conditions that I've tried to be as clear as possible, knowing that there's multiple, that somebody could just say, hey, here's this note, that's the condition.
I mean, it's natural that, I mean, to have the conditions precedent and subsequent, so some things are gonna have to come after our vote. But the standard that they're still held to.
Right.
Yeah. The check and balance is usually at the building inspector,
Yep.
code enforcement. I guess if they're not in compliance, either by date or by performance, then they come back before us. Explain, edit, or we rescind.
Hope it's not because of COVID.
That extent. Unless anybody else has anything else, I think we've got a pretty good list. I've got 11 numbered things, seems like a lot, some of it's a lot of standard stuff. If somebody feels like making a motion,
Gary was taking really good notes over there.
Yeah, if
And
not, or I
I
can-
know I didn't get them all.
I can read it, or I can hand this to somebody if somebody wants to read through these.
No, go ahead, you can read it, you got it.
Generally, the chair doesn't make a motion, but I'm going
Right.
to in front of me, I don't mind.
I'll start the motion if you
Okay.
fill in the blanks, that
Absolutely.
would be helpful. So I move to approve case number 22-007 SIT with the conditions as follows.
Standard conditions of approval per standard staff memo. The area within the 100-foot wetland setback that the gravel is to be removed shall be seeded, loamed and seeded.
And makes it less non-conforming.
Right, yep. Placards added for a no disturb buffer. And by doing so, making the site less non-conforming. An NHDOT driveway permit is needed, which the applicant is in process of doing. Final cistern design needs to be coordinated with the fire chief, and final approval from the chief received for the file. The 3-to-1 slopes on the southeast side of the site shall be loamed and seeded. There'll be a no-cut restriction until October 1st. No work previously approved in the wet impact area elsewhere on the site is authorized with this approval. That wetland work will require updated site plan approval. The Conservation Commission will issue a final memorandum for the project file. Lighting to meet the town ordinance. NHD subsurface approval will be required prior to the CFO. And lastly, showing the 4K box or area on the plan encompassing the 2 required test pits, which I think currently look like they're both labeled number 2. So. That's it, unless anybody, that's good?
Got it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Gary.
I'll second.
take a vote. All those in favor of approving case number 22-007-SIT, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And that's, alrighty.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And thank you guys for, it was a long process, but it was a lot of details, and I'm glad we got to work through it, so, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck.
All right, I'll resume my position as chair. As such, Mr. Davies will return to a participating but non-voting alternate, although there's likely no other votes for tonight. Section of the night where we have other on the agenda always. Nothing under that for tonight that won't be covered somewhere else. We reserve a portion of every meeting for public comment, and we welcome members of the public to attend. This is a good time to ask us general questions about site plans, zoning, planning, subdivision regulations, where we can answer it as long as it's not case specific. So we'll move on from there unless Mr. Demerit, that's here in the audience tonight, would like, has anything? No. Approval of minutes, there's one set of minutes. It was the site walk from last week, July 20th, 2022. I had a chance to review those. They look really good.
You wrote them.
I drafted those minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of July 20th, 2022, the site walk.
I second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Mooney, a second by Ms. Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
I'll abstain.
601. Okay. And the next item on the agenda is select board and staff board member updates. I'll just go around the room in order, start with Ms. Jones, and we'll work our way around to Mr. Haney.
I'm good.
What's that?
Just, one thing for SRPC, the 10-year project, I understand, is kind of wrapping up, some final comments on that. I don't think Nottingham has much going on, other than, whatever we had already put in.
I did send that list that we had from the letter to the select board prior, from years prior, and then reminder. So I did send that to Colin at SRPC, saying, you know, here was the list we had identified. It's already on the list, I think. Please get that included. I inquired about the corridor study. Should that be in there? Generally, it seems like generally not a good fit for it because it kind of delays it from happening, was my impression of the response on that one. Mr. Bartlett?
You want the report now, or you just go around asking what people want?
Oh, no, this is the select board and staff updates.
Okay, all right. Our recent Monday evening meeting was a lively one, to say the least. Moore's Road has been accepted. Very controversial at that point, but it's been accepted as a road, has met some standards set forth by the highway director. We've also approved a purchasing policy in regards to the department heads. New Hope Church, I guess they're gonna be paving part of their lot, which part of it is on the cemetery side, which cemetery will not have any use for that, so that allowed them to pave that. The default budget was passed. You guys want the numbers, or? Okay, so the default budget for 2023 is set to be $4,541,263. That's the default budget. That is unrelated, I believe, but I'll get a more definitive answer for you. Yeah, we're kind of working through that right now. I mean, that's gonna be coming up in the next, meeting. It's,
Budget season's almost here.
yes, yes. I know it's kind of lengthy, I'm sorry. Month of July has been, dubbed the, Parks and Recreation Month, for the Parks and Recreation Department. The Cahill Lane discontinuance, if you recall last year, we voted to give back part of that land so they could make a turnaround. Everything's been set, so, that's been passed. No parking signs, for various areas such as Mary Meeting Hill Road and on Deerfield Road. That's been passed, and that's it. And obviously, we've had some, updates in regards to some of these, roads, lake roads that are now, public roads. To be compliant with E901, some of the roads had been name changes. The roads that were affected were the offshoots from Bardary. Lamprey was a controversial one, so that's been tabled for the time being. Mendel, Tuckaway Shores, the offshoots from there, various roads down there have been name changed, and this will be all updated in the minutes and be posted online as well. Highland Ave, that new paved section, has been, renamed, and North River Lake Road East has been renamed. White's Grove, various sections of that, and then obviously, Union Street has been name changed, yeah. So, on all that will be up on the, site here shortly.
Is that to, that,
The idea behind it is that E91 had taken a look at the roads within our community,
yeah,
and they dubbed that, you know, like let's take Lamprey. How many offshoots are there on that road? You know, and the state looks at it as if a certain section of a road serves more than 2 residences, it should really have a name for that road. So in that case, there was some roads off of Bardary, which that first shoot was renamed Cardinal, I believe, but then there was another offshoot off that was Hemlock, because it served more than 2 residences.
so this is all, the renaming was done as part of that E911 that was passed, whatever, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
now or
something, yeah,
like that?
yeah.
And is it automatically gonna come into effect, or does it still have to be voted? Was it like 90% or 80% of town, some degree of change with the number or street?
It wasn't nearly that big.
Oh, okay.
So what I just named off is what's been affected, and it's mostly the lake roads. Yeah, so, and it's already been approved, so we're just updating our maps now and what have you. But like I said, Lamprey, we're gonna be coming back to. It was kind of controversial there in regards to certain sections of the roads and what have you. But it's also supposed to be able to help, mutual aid, you know, coming to our town. I mean, be able to locate, you could probably speak more to this than me, but it's supposed to help responding towns to know exactly where they're going, which, you know, most of them know where they are, but we have a lot of new folks, particularly in our fire department.
Some of those roads at night, even with like knowing where you are, it's hard to see. So
Yeah.
I'd like to have a GPS that
Yeah.
maybe has some idea.
And
If it
it's
works
not-
out there.
Not only mutual aid, it's mainly our rescue services being able to know where they're going, find where the residence is. And because mutual aid will find it based on our
The
guys
lights,
already
they install the
there.
blinking lights.
Yeah.
And Cahill was, I think, from a condition of approval from this board, right? Is that the one where it was a town warrant article that accepted, then there was another town warrant article to kind of, you know, relinquish with the condition of coming in?
Yeah.
Okay, so that,
Yep.
so that,
And then we approved that subdivision, so essentially by us approving it, it had something for them to set, for you
Right.
guys to say, yeah, we're gonna stop.
Yep. Yep, okay, all right, thank you.
Nothing from me. Just make sure everybody's looking at the site plans and subdivision regs for next month.
Just a reminder for a couple things, we have there's a site walk plan that's scheduled for next Wednesday at 5 PM for the Smoke Street, the 4-lot subdivision, over there. It'd be good to try to get an idea of who might be able to attend. I'm on the possible at this point, because I have to leave work early to get to that. I know Mr. McKinnon, I think it said before,
I'll be out of town.
he'll be out of town.
I'll be able to attend.
Just trying to make sure to see like how many we can,
That's 5:30 or 5?
5.
5, okay.
Yeah, we did things differently on that one.
And that's a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like we'll have a few individuals there. If you can't make it, please, please email, send an email out to the group. Just say I won't be able to attend, that way they can start that. Just a general reminder, so our second meeting in August, again, we had set aside for kind of doing some housekeeping, mostly for the subdivision regulations and possibly site plan regulations. So please just keep that in mind, keep anything that you had in your mind of items that we need to address. Have a list. Probably we can go over those at the next meeting quickly, just to make sure we're prepared for that meeting and can make it as productive as possible. I'll ask Kevin if he has a list anywhere of items we've kind of noted that, to get that out to us sooner than later. And Mr. Haney, same thing, I think there might be a possible list SRPC might have had for us. If not, I'll dig through my own.
Are we talking about, do you want to focus on subdivision regs or as opposed to zoning ordinance?
At this meeting, I believe it's gonna be subdivision and site plan, and then, but yes, I think we should start, be prepared to move forward with anything.
I know I've seen the one where you guys have talked about zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
I'll have to look around, it's probably
We
there.
didn't really talked about sites, so.
No, we haven't, so there's some cleanup there, like appendices and then, map, it's being wrong, the E911 maps instead of the town tax maps for scenic roads, that kind of stuff, and then we talked about, roadway setback for new roads, and putting that in the sub-regs or site plan regs instead of in the, zoning regs, since a new road would be coming through a subdivision process. Those kind of things, and then the ZO, I know we have a number of items, we had steep slopes, that's a carryover, probably a few others there as well. I wish I'd made a note. I think looking at the definition of impervious might be useful. The way we have it right now, it's just kind of mostly a structure, but there's lots of different ways to create, impervious surface, so we probably could look at a way to define that a little bit better, quantitatively, so, so I would add that to the list. And then, I'm thankful that Mr. Bartlett is here tonight. I had reached out to the select board just to remind them of the importance of their seat at the table here and having representation for themselves and for the town. It also helps us to avoid possibly 3-3 votes. It's better to have a 3-4 or a 4-3. So I just asked also to clarify who the alternate is, because we can't see an alternate for that position. So I think the discussion on that, Mr. Bartlett, correct me if I'm wrong, is the select board, I believe, might be doing a rotation.
Correct, and
Mr. Moran is gonna be likely.
Mr. Warren will be the next one coming on, starting in August.
And the alternate, has the alternate been set?
No, but
Okay.
we'll get that rectified and have an answer for you by the next meeting.
Yeah, no, perfect. We just need it. That way it's, we can document it so that when we see in that position, we aren't doing it incorrectly. For my chicken scratch, that's all I had, so I'll pass it on to Ms. Mooney.
I'd like to ask Kevin if you would forward our site walk announcement to Lamprey River Advisory Committee because of the proximity to the Little River.
I think LRAC did provide some comment regarding that, so I
Yes,
think it would be,
yes.
yeah, I
But
think that'd be a.
But having
yeah.
somebody there, boots on the ground, makes a big difference too.
Nope, I agree. I think.
I also would like to congratulate Dallas Huggins, who gave a turtle rehab program at the library a couple weeks ago. She and her partner were featured on New Hampshire Chronicle last week as turtle rehabilitators. So that was very special. That's it.
I've got nothing.
So, one of the things that, has popped up, recently is the Invest New Hampshire, $100 million that's been put forward, for housing, to stimulate and promote housing. It also includes a lot of funds, for communities that want to pursue, regulation changes or other types of policy-related items, so, you know, your softer administrative type stuff. So there will be availability for grants coming up soon. I think they're actually going to be released. There's going to be like an exploratory release or like a soft release coming up in a couple of days, maybe by Friday. And then so things will be made available, and then you'll start to see when the due dates are and such. So keep an eye out for that. If there's projects that the community has had in mind, obviously with SRPC being on more the consulting end, this is a place where we pay attention. We don't really direct developers on how to go get these kinds of funds. That's really for them to work out. But on this side of things, helping municipalities prepare themselves for it, or to create areas where you want to focus where housing can be built, things of that nature. How you want to change zoning ordinance, environmental regulations that you want to work through to be able to do that, or looking at utilities, getting utilities put in, or doing infrastructure improvements. So that's an FYI. Invest New Hampshire has its own website, so you can go look at that and just sort of stay in tune as to what they're doing. I think it's just basically.
Yeah, I think somebody, did you forward, there's a webinar actually of like, it's gonna go over like what it actually covers, right?
Yeah, that's NHMA, which is talking about affordable housing, things like that. And that new, law that was signed by the governor that addresses such, it talks about other land use boards in towns. There is money available, all the kind of have to be available. And when will that be? It looks like it's August 10th at noon. It's not a project, it's a lunch program.
Saturday.
They usually
No.
have,
August 10th.
you usually get their stuff on YouTube afterwards.
Yeah.
So if you can't make it, I'll double check on that and I'll let you guys know.
I think it's one I was gonna listen to anyway for work. Yeah, that would be one, that's a good point, especially the code side. I mean, you can request grant fundings to even just have grants to cover SRPC to provide recommendations on code. 'Cause workforce housing, I think there's a legal obligation to permit workforce housing, but there's a big move to expand workforce housing zoning to provide incentive, whether that be to try and consolidate it so it has less of an impact to abutting properties, or there's a lot of different incentives, and I think that's what kind of the towns want people to build into their code. It's clearer for a developer.
From that email, so I did, pick up there.
Yeah.
It talks about, I guess there's a requirement to improve, for land use boards to improve transparency. That may be something of interest. And then to speed up the local approval process. So those things like that's kind of our push.
So we could hopefully get a grant for a full-time, planning position.
Well, that's one of the gray areas, it was like.
For
there's
SRPC is
it's
a
supposed to
full-time
encourage
member.
you to be faster. There's not really, it's how you do that, you can only work
Right.
so fast.
Right, especially on a volunteer board.
Yeah.
And you may want to look at it. There may actually be like 2-year grants to actually hire someone. That may be available.
It's like 10 or 15 million.
It's like drinking from the fire hose sometimes with things that are coming at me
Sure.
that, and I catch little bits, I might be mashing together different things, but that's something that I thought we could take a look at it. And so then the other thing I wanted to bring up, which is back to the meeting, again, Kevin and I are starting to do a weekly or bi-weekly check-in, to help stay on top of things. He's made it quite clear, he's doing a lot, and it's a lot. I mean, I think even when Jen anticipated, this, us doing the survey writing, it's more work, more projects have come in when you look back historically, and you all obviously know that as well. So he and I are doing that. We had a good catch up today because we were able to start to locate Word versions of a lot of these documents so that we have things that we can edit, and do on the fly if we want to, like we did that meeting for the bylaws, or just for us to be able to edit. And so we'll be prepared for the meeting. One of the things that I would like to bring for the meeting, I think I've talked about this before, is maybe some changes to the applications. First and foremost is maybe separating the two, because right now site plan review and this subdivision are the same one, and then adding a narrative section, or requesting a narrative section from the applicant. So there's a couple of things, but I don't want to go wholesale change, but I think there's a couple of tweaks we can make. So I'm going to be prepared to bring that here for you all to react to, but then we'll also be prepared for whatever it is that you all want to talk about. And you had just outlined a few. And I'll look to see what that list, see if I can find a list that we have for site plan review and subdivision. As I said, I know we had one for zoning. I don't know if I've seen one for that. I say it doesn't exist. But I'll take a look at it.
Copies was a big one.
What was that?
Number of plan copies.
Yes, that's in my notes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that one, and then I would say on the application, requesting or requiring a PDF version of any plans, so that we're not scanning, attaching, or getting huge files that are too large to upload.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to him about that in subsequent
Yep.
conversations, because, yeah, getting an understanding of how it comes in to him, and then what we can realistically make changes to. Yeah, I think we all had talked about that at the end last time. So, yeah, so that's just, I don't know, I just want to put that on your radar, because we are moving towards that. It's going to be upon us pretty quickly.
Also on the application front, we did put the conditional use permit, we found that, we PDF'd that, we put that online. But I think you asked the question about a fee, like, do we not, because the fee would have to be set by
Fee
the
is set by the
select board,
select board,
right?
yeah, I spoke
But
with.
do we need to propose the fee?
No, I think I had brought it to town administration,
administrator, okay.
and, so I believe that'll be something select board chooses. I found the original kind of documents as to what other towns do, what they charge for fees, and I re-forwarded that information, to town admin for consideration by the select board at some point.
Do we also, is the 24th, it's no new business, but are we also, do we intend to discuss the impact fees at that meeting? Or is that a different meeting possibly?
We would have to notice it as such, but that would be a good time to, that'd probably be a good time to have that.
Is that all cleared?
Cleared.
That's
Yep.
all cleared on?
Recently,
It's
yeah.
cleared? Okay.
Are we gonna have time to do all that on the 24th?
I think we're just gonna focus
I
on
think we-
site sub and application.
I think we put off the impact fee discussion for another night.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get to it, so it could be the first meeting in September. Again, I want to make sure we get to at least the fire station portion of it, and part of that, I think part of the reason was not acting on it initially is waiting for the capital improvement committee to get together, because we could potentially make a move to change impact fees, and then find out there's something big coming up on the CIP plan that would qualify for them, and then just adding back in or reamending it. Just makes probably a little bit of difficulty for the town staff to keep track of. So I take back my statement of yes, for August or September, I'd say that we continue to pen that until CIP, which should be starting to meet in the fall.
The only other thing I would ask to, consider is, appendices and lists of things that we keep in our documents, whether it's the subdivision regs, or whether it's scenic roads, or whether it's some other list of things that we keep in our zoning ordinance that are subject to change, that are outside of our control, that perhaps if there's a way to pull them out, so that they're not part of the document, so that they can be updated and an applicant can see, the real-time updated version that doesn't require us to have to go to town meeting or do a meeting here. This has worked in other communities I've been in. I don't know if it'll work for you all, but it's perhaps something to consider. Because the example that I think of is that scenic road section that we weren't sure, in one list it was on and one list it was off, and you did the digging and found out, no, it was on, or however that ended up concluding, but.
Typo, yeah.
But it would be nice to be able to have Kevin know what the thing is with the applicant, without it being in the regs, it's because, maybe the regs didn't get updated to meet whatever the town had done it. So, it's just something to consider.
If there's a way to get there, I'd say we're open to it. If there's a way to get there that simplifies things for everybody involved,
Yeah.
I would say we'd probably welcome it.
Sometimes it's just kept as a separate document, but you reference it in like the zoning ordinance saying, you know, please see the list of scenic roads per something, you know, per.
Author of the document should be the keeper of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because the select board puts it together, defer to select, however, as opposed to.
They do that for resource maps a lot too. Like,
It's
those get
precisely-
updated every couple of years.
And they just reference a title, and then they say as amended, and then this way it's not, they're not held to something that has since been changed.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're gonna need some new maps at some point, at least probably with road name changes. I feel like there was another map that we should have, and now I gotta remember which one it was.
I'm gonna say two words, elephant in the room, not those words. Master plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's something we,
maybe there'll be some grant money in this housing thing that we could
Nice. We
apply
did that,
for
we
that.
did that before.
yeah, we can't, I know we can't lose sight of that. Part of that might be getting a good, strong, subcommittee. That could be people, made up of people that aren't even from this the board. It would have at least one planning board member. So please, if, we probably already asked a bunch of people, if you're on a board, you tend to ask others to join things. But that'd be one where, you could commit to a month or two of a few meetings to try to help move that along. And then my plan would be to continue pushing for us to have, to join SRPC as a dues paying member to kind of get some additional access to resources there, especially with what we're seeing in not having a full-time town planner, even a part-time town planner. A lot of that's falling on Kevin, the land use clerk's desk, probably outside the true responsibilities.
Year and the year before.
Yeah, they're complex and they're continued. Keeping track of all that is a lot. Okay. Kevin?
So I have a version on my law that needs to be signed with Data Lane. Language from the select board was approved and, stamped and ready to get sent off to Rich. So we'll get it signed on the way out, that'd be great. So if you guys need anything for that meeting, I do have the subregs now, we did find a Word copy of that, so I'll get that out to everyone. But if you need anything else, just email me, let me know, and I'll shoot it out to everyone. I'm actually going to be on a little bit of a vacation, so I won't be around from August 5th to August 9th. I'll have everything ready for the 10th meeting, and I'll be here for the 10th meeting. I'll have the agenda and everything out on that Thursday. But just an FYI, trying to get hold of me, just can't be cognizant of that. Ian, if you can do me a favor, and either let me take a picture of what you jotted down, or email me.
Yeah, I can just give it to you.
All those conditions of approval, that would be great, just so I can get the verbiage right, because I can get that situated in the next day or two. Yeah, and then just, I think, Larry, like what I mentioned, him and I are trying to coordinate a little bit more, so we can make things a little bit smoother. Make things work a little bit better, and I think that for me, the primary thing would be to situate that application, both differentiate it and then try to make it user friendly, so people understand what it says. And also when I do get things in, case in point, like this go around was great, because I got things in, Beach and at Chris Berry. I got an electronic form, which is nice and easy for me to shoot out, and you guys will see in the packets that you have there. That's how they come into me, and I literally just take them and put them in, or if everyone's like that, that'd be fantastic. They all aren't, but sometimes it's just some guy writing a document on a piece of paper, which is, I understand that, no worries. Those, and just keep in mind, those packets are the paperwork for next meeting. If anything else comes in, clearly I'll forward it to you and then have it ready for your binders, but that's the primary side.
What is our caseload up to now?
So right,
Some stuff that moved to the town.
yeah, so right now it's a continuation, which is the Cornwall one on, Stevens Hill. So that one, the Moore's Road one, that'll probably be a biggie, probably highly attended, I would imagine. And then there's a design review, it's design review number 2, we'll call it. It's the Deerfield Road one that we saw before with, for all.
The lake property?
It was the one that's off right there, to get to a road to Raymond. We had, somehow it had something to do with the road on.
Oh, that's the one with
Both towns.
the access was from Deerfield, but there was
That's
land in on.
exactly-
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Deerfield, sorry, not Raymond, yeah, Deerfield.
Gotcha.
So that, it's that one, so that he's got another iteration of that, so I don't think that'll be too large. And then we did, sneak on that, food, because there was confusion, and they assumed that they were just, they thought that they emailed, they said, oh, hey, you know, we're gonna be on that next agenda, blah, 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 part of the board, and I was like, not really how it operates. I thought it would be better than kicking them down the road and say, it's not, nothing for me to put it on.
Conceptual.
Yeah, it's a conceptual, it's kind of, like I said, it's fresh in your heads now. I know, my guess is probably there's some real estate stuff that would probably better be settled sooner rather than later. So I think.
This has something to do with Tuckaway Tavern?
It's those folks, yeah, so, at the last meeting, they talked about an adjacent property to the Mary Hill, to the wedding venue.
Right.
With a plan, with another plan that they have, they don't quite own the property yet, but they're in conversations.
It's just conceptual
It's
for
just a
that, yeah.
conceptual.
Okay. All right, so we got plenty on the agenda for that night.
On Mary Hill.
And I'll reach out to the town administration, Ms. Sterndale, to gauge if we'll need access to another room for that anticipated case load, if, depending on how well, you know, the select board meeting was attended. In space requirements, you know, we'll either try to get room 2 set up as well, so it'll be aired in there and heard, and people can move back and forth, or if there's large plan for attendance, see if we can get the gymnasium, but I'll coordinate that with again, with town admin to see how many, you know, how many they had at their meeting, and if we should be able to accommodate it in between these 2 rooms or not, so.
The room was filled with about 3 people standing as well.
Yeah,
That was all the people, just for most
Yeah, once that was cleared up, everybody left.
We'll
Expect the same.
I'll expect that, so at least to have room 2 available. All right, anything else for the agenda? If not, I'm trying to get you guys out before 10:30, 11. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Favor? Great, we're adjourned, thanks,
Aye.
thanks, everybody.